Receiving a payment for religious services. It's a very big discussion in this upcoming Daf session. Does the Chazan, for example, the cantor, who represent us, he pray the Amud at the stage for us, especially if it's a high holidays or Shabbat, is that okay to pay him in a sense of receiving payment for religious services? Furthermore, teaching Torah to other people, is that allowed to receive payment? What exactly the payment the teachers, the rabbis received in teaching a sacred subject like Torah? Furthermore, this discussion came about with a statement the Mishnah gave us. We mentioned that yesterday, that if a fellow, let's use names, Reuven, commit himself not to receive any benefit, Reuven made a vow that I will not receive any benefit from Shimon, yet Shimon is the teacher who teaching Torah, who teaching Mishnah, who's teaching Talmud, etc. He is the one who blow the shofar. The Reuven allowed to partake and be part of the mitzvah, since he prohibited anything to do with him. This discussion go further with the question that posted to the late Dayan Weiss, Minchat Yitzchak, that I have the privilege to not only know him personally, but receive askama, a letter of support for my first book. The Minchat Yitzchak have a responsa over a fellow that owns a cleaners. As you know, you see it now on Ricestown Road, for example, in Baltimore. There is a huge place, mainly for Spanish people. Instead of having their washer and dryer, you go to those machines and you put in money, etc. So those laundrymen and others owned by a fellow Jew, and it's operating on Shabbat. The question is that permissible, especially in some places when you know that the secular Jews may using it? This type of question of Schar Shabbat, it's not only for this situation, can be further. You have a babysitter, right? And she's hired specifically to work on Shabbat. Is that okay? Like my daughter, she's a head nurse, so over there in a nursing station there are people who needs, for example, elderly people, etc., needs someone to come specifically on Shabbat to do service for them. How can you do that? So this is part of our discussion today, and we begin on the page 36b. Our page today is 37.
So, Rabbi,
6 lines from bottom of the page. מלמדו מדרש הלכות ואגדות, אבל לא ילמדנו מקרא. Here the Ran explained, if you have a fellow that he made a vow, he prohibited by vow benefiting another fellow from learning midrash, rabbinic writing, halachot, agadot, the rabbinic tale, but not the text itself, mikra, the Torah, the Bible itself. So here we understand that that's free of charge. He's not taking any money for that. So the Ran asked a question. We know that mitzvot lav lehenot nitnu. When you have a commandment, you're not supposed to receive payment for that, because we do not derive benefit from mitzvot. Mitzvot you're doing because it's a mitzvah to do, and you do not derive benefit from that. So the Ran explained that sometimes you saving paying tuition to school. That's the derivative. If you really paid him, it's a disputation. The Tosfot Reed said that it's okay, the others said no. Now, Mikra, mai ta'ama lo ilamdenu. What's the reason that the teacher who is prohibited by vow, let's understand it in the sense of people. Reuven said, this fellow Shimon, I have nothing to do with that. But he used it in a term of vow. Nothing to do with him. Shimon turned to be the teacher. So can you attend his class if it's free of charge? So the question is, why is a problem? What exactly you have a benefit, a joy, a pleasure, or any type of benefit by attending the class that Shimon teaches? So they said, Mishum dekamehanele, because Shimon caused Reuven to have some type of benefit of joy. Why? So the simple answer is, we all obligate to study Torah, and instead of paying tuition for school or other places, he goes to him with free of charge. But so if that's the case, midrash nameka mehanale. So what's the real difference between teaching the Torah, the Bible, or teaching the rabbinic writing? If it's free of charge, so it's free. If he save money from going elsewhere, or it's an issue is prohibited, why you have a differentiation between study with him Torah and study with him Midrash? אמר שמואל, במקום שנוטלים שכר על המקרא ונוטלים שכר על המדרש. Most probably in those places it was like that you pay for certain courses, others were free. So it's like in the colleges, right? You have auditing, that people are allowed to go to classes in some places and stand on the back free. But if you want to be a student and get a credit for that, you need to pay, right? Just an example. So here, when he teaching Mikra, the Bible, the text, it's free. Versus, if it's a Midrash, is not the right benefit. So the Gemarrah said, my paska. So the question is, why was the halacha stated without a qualification? Because you see no big difference between the two, between the study Torah and study Midrash. So why in the language of the Mishnah we have a clear reference to a case that the payment was taken for teaching Torah? Page 37. Ha kamashmalan. So here they come to teach us, the Mishnah come to teach us, ואפילו במקום שנוטלין שכר על המקרא, שרי למשקל, על המדרש לא שרי למשקל. Even the place that you receive payment for study Torah, and they are not strict to teach free of charge, they're allowed to get paid for the Torah, but not for the Midrash. So soon you see the difference. Why? Ma'ishna Midrash de lo. What's the problem of teaching Midrash versus teaching Torah? Dichtiv, at the very end of life of the biblical Moses, they said in Dvarim, in Deuteronomy chapter 4, he said, Ve'oti tziva Hashem ba'et hahi, the Lord commanded me at the time of revelation, Mount Sinai, lelamed etchem, to teach you chukim u'mishpatim, the laws, the ordinances. So it means uchtiv, and right there it's written the following verse: Re'eh, see, limadeti etchem chukim u'mishpatim, kasher tzivani Hashem Elokai, which means Moses repeats again And he said that he had the obligation, the responsibility, the commandment to teach Torah to the Israelite, which is the way, the manner of which he needs to teach. So for sure he is not commanded to receive payment for that teaching. So the derivative is kasher tzivani. It means that God basically taught him, and Lemor, he is teaching then. There, it means that people know that it's not his word, it's the word of God. But you see here that the derivative, he was commanded not to receive payment for teaching Torah. Ma ani bechinam. Moses said to people, look, I did not receive payment for my arduous effort of teaching you Torah. Af atem namei bechinam. We have the obligation, the Lechem Mishneh explains, to teach Torah to others. At the beginning of Pirkei Avot, the ethics, we said Moses received the Torah from Sinai and transmitted to Joshua to the prophet, right? Prophet to Joshua to the to elders, elder to the prophets, and prophet to the men of the great assembly. So why the rabbis asked, why you need to say that all this process of transmitting it? And the rabbis tells us that the Torah was not given to Moses to have a nice diploma saying this is what I study in school, this is what I acquire for myself. The whole obligation is leimor, to transmit it. It's not him, he is a vessel that transmitted teaching to others. We are obligated to teach others, to teach the world, not to keep the Torah for ourselves. So here you see the same way that he received the Torah, Moses, and transmitted free of charge. Therefore his students, future students, the disciples to this very day, suppose not to receive payment. So they said, if that's the case, mikra namei bechinam. So if that's the case, what's the difference between teaching Midrash or teaching Torah? It all should be free. So they said, Rav said, schar shimur. That's fascinating. Rav said, you know why you get the payment? It's payment for watching those kids. What does that mean, watching kids? You can go either by the Tosfot, who tells us that they're not running around, right? Or the Rosh said that they will not go out and do damage and do all kind of kid things. The idea is that you get, soon you see the concept is called havla'ah. Havla'ah meaning you receive payment for something else, and by the way, you receive payment for that. Meaning, you are like, in a sense, a guard watching the kids that they should not run around. But how you keep them alert? You're teaching them Torah. So the payment you receive is by watching them, not running around, and by the way, you're teaching them Torah. So again, the payment is not for the Torah itself.
The discussion was regarding a Melamed. That discussion was in Ketubot, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the Melamed is an example, but can be many other examples that you receive payment for something else, like the Chazan. So many shuls does that. You hire the Chazan, the Kentur, to do slichot.
Right, we talked about that.
Or you hire him to do other things. And it's either the rabbis, they get payment for the preparations. Schar hachana, the time that they put of preparations of the Torah reading, of the teaching, etc. for that. Or schar batala, that they, instead of doing other jobs, they're doing this. So for that you are paying them. Alright? Rabbi Yochanan amar, schar pisuk te'amim. So the Rosh explains that when it's come to a biblical trop, you can go on the internet and hear the trop nowadays, but in those days they need to know all the nuances when it's come to the expression of words, to do it particularly correct. So these nigunim, these melodies and the trap, this is extra, which means the Torah is obligated to teach us to teach chukim umishpatim, the law and the ordinances. But others, the rabbi said, all day separation between verses, melodies, etc., that's rabbinic, and therefore that's entitled to receive payment. Tnan, lo yelamdenu mikra. So the fellow that prohibited any benefit should not teach him the Bible, free of charge. Bishlama, we understand leman de'amar, according to Rabbi Yochanan, who said that one who teaching the Bible, schar pisuk te'amim, that he said that he get a payment is for the punctuation of the text with cantillation notes. We understand for that he received the payment. Hainu de lo yelamdeinu. So now this is the reason that he shall not teach him Bible. Why? Because when you teach this type of punctuation, is a component of teaching the biblical text. Ela leman de'amar schar shimur, but one who said that the payment is for what? Rav said that guarding, watching the kids. Gadol bar shimuhu. This applied to a minor, but an adult, mature adult, is not in a need of watching. He's watching himself. So the Gemarrah said, Bekatan katani. Here we speak about the one who make a vow for the minor that needs to be guarded. So therefore, this is the obligation. So even the Ran asked, the Gemara said in Yevamot in 114 that the minor is not obligated the same way as mitzvot. But there are those who said that for the chinuch, for the purpose of teaching and training, that's the goal. Ibekatan, if the Mishnah speaks about one who is prohibited is a minor, Eima Seifa. Let's look at the last clause of the Mishnah. Aval melamedet banav mikra, but he is teaching the one who's make a vow, his son, the text, the Torah. Katan bar banim hu. So you're going to tell me that a minor is one who has the potential to have children. If the Mishnah speaks about the children of that fellow, the minor children, so it has to be not a minor but mature adult. So the Gemara said, no, you know what happened here? Chasuri mechasra v'hachei katani. It's something was missing, and that what's the it's like missing words here. Lo yelamdenu mikra bekatan. When it's come to teaching Torah, so it's applied to a minor. Im haya gadol, but if he is a mature adult, melamdo lo ulevanav mikra. So he allowed to teach him and his children the text, the Bible. So the idea is the same way as you're allowed to support children of someone that you make a vow. You have nothing to do with this guy. You're allowed to support his sons, his children. The same way as here, it's come to teaching, the children is different. Now, the Nativot HaMishpat, there is a book called Nativot HaMishpat. He asked a question. He said that here, if you have a fellow that make Neder ala mitzvah, if someone said, I'll not touch the lulav, I'm not build the sukkah, etc., etc., that's a biblical mitzvot. So the question is, how far you go with Chalot HaNeder? We discussed it in the past. So the question is, why here you don't hold the same way? The simple answer, because it's a long subject, is the idea that you have to differentiate between physical versus spiritual benefit. When it's come to this type of derivative, like the Ktsot HaChoshen said, when you're borrowing a book for someone, okay, so you derive benefit from study it. So what happens if something happened, even it's behind your control, you're still obligated because you borrow it. But if you borrow a Bible, mitzvot lavdenot nitnu, you do not supposed to derive benefit from that. Anyway, the whole point is, when someone study Torah, that's the whole idea. When you're teaching Torah, it's unlike other subjects. Over the time, the student become part of the Torah. The Torah penetrates to the heart of people, and eventually it changed them. That's what the rabbi said. You look, I can attest over the years that when you're involved with this, and it's part of you. I have several teachers. We used to call Rav Ezrachi, he's one of our luminary rabbis. In those years, we used to call him walking Sefer Torah. Right? So it's just become part of you. Anyway, Meitivei. Here the Gemara challenge Rav from a Braita. Tinokot, young children that go through a cheder, go to a very early childhood study, preschool. Lo korin batchila b'Shabbat, which means you don't teach them the certain verses first time. Ela shonim barishon. You're allowed to, Meiri explained, repeat something that you studied before Shabbat, second and third time. Why? So they said, Bishlama leman damar, if you follow Rabbi Yochanan that hold that the reason that the teacher received payment is because schar pisuk te'amim, because he's teaching them the cantillation, and for that he received payment. Hainu de'en korim batchila b'Shabbat. Now you see why, because it's a great effort for the teacher, and therefore he's not supposed to get a payment for work that's done on Shabbat. Why? If you remember, we studied in Tractate Nedarim, page 64, Rashi tells us that it eventually reached a point that people, you go to a real matter of buying, selling transactions on Shabbat, or the Tosfot and Meiri said that it's appear like maritime, like appear like you have a mekach umimkar, like you have a transactions on Shabbat. So they said, Ela leman da'amar. So basically for the cantillation, it's not considering such a great effort, so he can repeat their learning, his learning with the youngsters. Ela leman da'amar schar shimur, the only reason, according to Rav, it's because you're guarding the children that shall not run around. Amai en korin batchila b'Shabbat, v'amai shonim barishon. Why the young children will not read the text on Shabbat and will not repeat? What's the difference between studying the text first time or later repetition of that? Ha'ika schar shimur de Shabbat. So you have this payment of watching the children on Shabbat in both cases. So it always should be a issue of schar Shabbat, or receiving payment for Shabbat's work. Uletamich, according to your view, excuse me, that you said according to Rabbi Yochanan, you do not read with youngsters mikra with the cantillation because it's receiving payment on Shabbat. Schar pisuk b'Shabbat mi asu. Why it's an issue? Havla'ahi. It's basically, in a way, you incorporated it. As we said, you do not pay for the job itself, you paid for other things and you incorporated it within. So the Gemara said, Ve'avla'a mishra shari. And this type of incorporation, which means you're paying for something else, and by the way, you get paid for other things, the Tanya, that's the text in Tosefta Tractate Shabbat, page 18, chapter 18. If you have a treasurer for Hekdesh, for the religious non-profit organization, right? That הסוחר את הפועל לשמור את התינוק. So this treasurer of the religious organization, he hired employee, a person, to do a babysitting, in a sense, to watch this little child to fill up water for the ashes for the red cow, meaning that it will not render ritual impurity. We explained many times that the person or utensils that contaminated by touching the corpse, they are not purified until you put the water of the chatat, of the sin offering. And that type of water, you have to go the way that the Torah instructed us on the 3rd and on the 7th day after they receive ritual impurity. Then they need to purify themselves in the mikveh, in the ritual bath, on the 7th day. And that's the Torah text in the book of Numbers, chapter 19. And those mei chatat, those water of purification, is a spring, pure spring water that combined with the ashes of the red cow take place in a very special order. In the Tractate Parah, the Mishnah tells us in chapter 3, the first 2 Mishnayot, they tells us that it was this process was made in an extraordinary way. They guard, they make sure that all those people who occupy themselves with that will not contaminate it. For example, the Kohen that burned this red cow, he needs to go to a special chamber in the Beit HaMikdash 7 days prior to that service, and no one allowed to touch him, and then they sprinkle daily water, and those water were never touched by anybody. So it's a long process that involved with parah aduma, with a red cow. So they said lishmor et hazra'im, or to watch over the seeds on Shabbat. So they said en notnim lo schar Shabbat, you not receive any type of payment for Shabbat. So lefichach, consequently, im avdu, page 37b, if it's lost or any damage happened to them on Shabbat, that's based on Rashi Bava Metzia 58, eino chayav be'achrayutan, he is considering as shomer chinam, a free guardian. So free guardian is exempt from this type of loss or losing money, etc. Ve'im haya schir Shabbat, but if he was this type of laborer, was hired by a week, or schir chodesh, hired by a month, get a month check, schir shana, a yearly paid employee, schir shavua, he was hired for 7 years contract, noten lo schar Shabbat, the employer, he needs to give him payment for his employment on Shabbat, because again you have here the incorporation, the havla'ah, that's part of the other. So schar Shabbat, to receive payment for Shabbat, that's prohibited. That's mekach umimkar, manner of transactions between parties. But if it's havla'ah, if it's incorporation, there is a school of thought that the sages are more lenient. That's the שיטה מקובצת. לפיכך, therefore, אם עבדו, חייב באחריותן. So since it's a payment involved, if they were lost on Shabbat, he is liable for, he was responsible. Why? Because now he changed his status. He's no longer a free guardian, he is a paid guardian. So paid guardian, if something lost, you are responsible to pay for that. So here you derive from this braita, you're allowed to receive a payment for Shabbat in havla'ah, in cooperation with the payment for the rest of the week. So, so teaching children usually is hiring for a week or month or year. So therefore, Shabbat is just part of that. So you don't have a prohibition of teaching on Shabbat, even according to Rabbi Yochanan. So why, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the question is still left, why the Braita prohibited receiving payment for a cancellation first time on Shabbat? Why it's a problem? So the Gemara said, okay, let's go a different direction. Ela gabei Shabbat. When you're teaching children on Shabbat, even it's free of charge, Tosfot said. Hainu ta'amad en ko'in batchila, mishum difnu avat hon dinukei lemitzvata de Shabbata. Because the father, if they teach something new, they don't want to bother, kids. If you repeat something you already learned, it's fine. But if it's something new, it's a different story with them, right? That's one way. What happened on Shabbat? People eat, thank you, and drink more than the regular day. V'yakira lehon alma. Guess what? The belly is full, right? They're tired, so they cannot study regular way. K'de'amar Shmuel, shinui veset tchilat choli me'ayim. When you have this change of eating habits, is the root of all these intestinal illnesses. So when you need to teach the children complicated subject or new subject, they need a special concentration, it's a problem. So here, I know one of the great luminary last rabbis, and I'm not going to mention his name, they asked him how come some of his children not follow the path of Yiddishkeit. And he confesses before he passed, and he said, look, instead of sitting on Shabbat table and singing songs, playing around with the children with the songs, having fun with them around Shabbat table, I did my obligation. I sat, I did the Kiddush, I did the Suda, I gave a little Dvar Torah, whatever, and I walked back to the Beit HaMidrash. And I went back to study. And because the children did not have the fun and the exposure to the beauty of Shabbat, that later on they lost attachment to that. Mm-hmm. So there is another phase. I remember the late was a absolutely great man. My son named after him, Rav Yitzchak Meir Haitan. So he was the Rabbi Zori, in a way the chief rabbi of Shomron. So Shabbat afternoon he used to get either ice cream or lollipop or whatever it is, and a huge group of kids used to say Tehillim. But they used to come for sure for the lollipop and ice cream. But one Shabbos when he had a cancer, they asked me to sub for him. So I came there and I tried to sub for him. And I have all the gifts and everything. It wasn't the same, and I came home, I was totally worn out. I said to him, how you do that? And I remember years the kids jump all over him, taking his kippah, playing with his beard, going around, jumping everywhere, him screaming, yelling, punching. But he has a way to do that, right? That's one of the things when you're dealing with kids. Anyway, Uleman de'amar schar pisuk te'amim, but according to Rabbi Yochanan said, you cannot teach in Mikra because it's the reward for the separate the cantillation. My ta'ama, what's the reason lo amar, he didn't say schar shimur, the payment for guardian. Kasavar banot mi ba'ayan shimur. It's a school of thought that young girls, you do not need to watch them. Why? Those days, I assume, was different, right? The Rans, the Rosh said they're not running around the streets, they are their homes, they're helping etc. Uleman de'amar schar shimur, ma'itama lo amar schar pisuk te'amim. So the one who said that get a payment for guarding them, why he's not speaking about tutoring, the tutor that received payment for teaching cantillation, what reason does Rav have for rejecting Rav Yochanan view? Kasavar, Rav hold, pisuk te'amim de'oraitahu. This is something that the cantillation receiving from Moses and Sinai, which is the tradition, and therefore we have a concept which rarely used, but it's used because eit la'asot laHashem heferu toratecha, that sometimes in a rare circumstance you can go even that direction to write something that usually you do not write. That's in Psalm 119. So therefore that's part of the law and ordinances that the Torah commanded to do it free of charge. So since you are prohibited to receive payment for teaching, the teacher allowed to teach the one who's taking a vow not to derive benefit from him free, because it's not any hana'ah, it's not derivative of benefits of. Obviously the Mishnah prohibited teaching Bible Mikra because you have this derivative of joy for a guardian, the reward for guardian. The Amar Rav Ikra Baravin, Amar Rav Hananel, Amar Rav, my dichtiv, they said in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8, Nehemiah, they said that when the Ezra, the scribe, the greatest, one of the greatest leader, he was a scribe that convinced the Jews to leave Babylon, and he led them to Eretz Israel to build the second Beit HaMikdash. So when he read the Torah in Rosh Hashanah for those who return from the Babylonian exile, they stated, ויקראו בספר בתורת האלוקים מפורש, ושום שכל ויבינו במקרא. They said, and they read in the book, in the Torah of God, distinctly, and they gave the sense and caused them to understand the reading. What does that mean? The people hear the reading from Ezra in the Torah, a very lucid reading, to understand, to total comprehend what he said, and then they eternalize. That's the Metzudot, the commentary explained. ויקראו בספר תורת האלוקים, they read from the book, the Torah of God, זה מקרא, that applied, the Meiri said, the text itself. מפורש, distinctly, זה תרגום. Let's face it, most of the people understand Aramaic, they do not know the language, so that's the common, especially the children, etc. They said in Nehemiah 13 that the women, the children, they have less level of understanding, so they know their language, so you need to have this translation. there is a lot of explanation what exactly happened. Anyway, Vesom Sechel, and they gave the sense, Elu Hapsukim, these are the division in two verses, which is you go and you have this separation between verses, or you have the nekudotaim, the two dots. So therefore people will be able to understand every line. Vayavinu bamikra ze pisuk te'amim, and cause them to understand the text. This is the punctuation of the text, cantillation notes. Ve'amreila, and there are those who said, Elo hamsorot. Some said these are the traditions that determine the proper vocalization of the Torah. So Rav hold that the cantillation note, the basically integral part of the study of the Torah. So, for example, the Tiferet Israel explanation of the Maharal, he said that you derive from this Mesorot a lot of things. Take, for example, the word Basukot. It's written in Leviticus 23, and it's written the word Basukot 3 times, 2 times without Vav, and 1 time with the Vav. So it means the Gemara in Sukkah, Tractate Sukkah, page 6, said that that's the idea in the oral teaching, that we have to have 3 walls of the Sukkah. So there's a lot of derivative from the Mesorot. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, now the Gemara elaborates on this text. So Rabbi Yitzchak said, Mikra Sofrim, the reading of the scribes, which means the correct vocalization of words with non-standard vowelization, Ve'itur Sofrim, and specific words you see in the text that used by the scripture as a semantic vekaryan velo ktivan. You have words that you read but it's not in a text. For example, Book of Ruth, there is a word Eli that appear missing, but we read it without having it in the text itself. Uchtivan velo kroyan, there are certain words that you have written but you don't say it. Halacha leMoshe Sinai. This is the halacha that transmitted from Moses in Sinai, that's the way we have to say it. There is a Ran and others that elaborate and said how exactly it happened, but the key is that part of our tradition believe that that's our credence, that Moses received it and transmitted those teachings to us. Mikra Sofrim, for example, the word Aretz or Eretz, Shamayim, Mitzrayim. This is the tradition that we receive. You use the word sometimes with the patach, with the vowel preceding the final syllable, the yim. Itur Sofrim, scribal away, for example, the word achar ta'avoru. They said in Bereshit 18 that Abraham said to the guest, you should eat and then you should pass. So achar telech, achar te'asef, kidmu sharim achar nognim. So it is a different way to use it. Achar, that's the way that the scribal write it. Tzidkatcha keharei kel. So the word kaf keharei, it's an addition to make it more kol tiferet lashon, to make it sounds better. Karyan velo ktivan, prat de belechto, ish de kasher yish'al ish bidvar ha'elokim, ba'im de nivneta, la di pleita, et de hugad, Elai de agorim, we just mentioned that, Elai de aseorim, haleim karyan velo ktivan. All these words we use but it's not written. Uchtevan velo karyan. Now you see example of things that it's written but you don't pronounce. Na deislach. 38. Zot de hamitzvah yidroch de hadorech. 5 דפעת נגב. Im de ki goel. Halein ktivan. These are written velo karyan, but not read. So, Amar Rav Acha bar Ada, when he returned from Israel, from the west to Babylon, במערבה, in the west, in Eretz Israel, paskin lehadei psuka litlata psukim. So the divided the sentences, remember, the separation between sentences which appear to us happen later. But here in the Shmot, in Exodus 19, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Hine anochi ba elecha be'ah ve'anan. Behold, I come to you in a thick cloud. So here you have a 3 point. One is this line, and then ba'avu yishma'am bedabrim bach v'gam b'cha yaminu l'olam, the second. Vayeged Moshe divra'am el Hashem. So you see here the three separation, the 3 psukim. Give me another. The Shulchan Aruch, the code in Yoreh De'ah 245 said, in a place where it's customary to take payment for teaching Torah, it is permitted to do so. Yet it is prohibited to take payment for teaching oral Torah. Later authority rule that today it is permitted to take payment for teaching oral Torah under a certain condition. That's the Rambam and Sefer Hamadah and Beit Yosef and others. So in short, the best way to do that is havla'ah. You get paid either for preparations, get paid for losing other income. Another halacha is schar Shabbat, receiving payment for Shabbat. So the code, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 306, said if one hires a laborer to safeguard an item, for him the laborer cannot receive direct payment for doing so on Shabbat. Therefore, if the item is stolen or lost on Shabbat, the laborer is not responsible to compensate the owner. However, if he was hired for a longer period of time, for example, a week, the owner may incorporate payment, that's what we call havla'ah, for Shabbat within the general payment. In this case, the laborer is responsible to compensate the owner if the item is stolen on Shabbat. The laborer must not explicitly demand payment for Shabbat, but should request payment for the entire period. And that's also the Rambam, Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 6.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai